What's up, Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement Podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I am your host, Chris. Before we get started today, I just want to give a shout out to all my listeners and all my guests who have been on here since I started this podcast. I wasn't sure where this was going to go. I didn't expect there to be guests on here. I didn't really have a direction, right? I just wanted to do it as another outlet for myself. Um, and I just want to say, after last week's episode, it was one of the most successful podcasts I've had to date, and we hit numbers that podcasts that were sitting for a couple months didn't hit. So I just want to say thank you so much. Last episode with George was very special to me, and George, I just wanted to say thank you if you're listening to this podcast. That was probably my favorite episode of all time, simply because we got to talk about Santi and we got to talk about all the things that, quite frankly, society doesn't really talk about. Birthday depression episode I thought was great. It was right after my birthday. It was 1 year since we lost our brother. And, I, again, thank you guys so much. I can't possibly say it enough. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about the dynamics of friendships and mental health. So when I talk about the dynamics of friendships and mental health, we have fake friendships, we have trauma bonding, we have fading friendships. Friendships that you were once strong, but you guys drifted apart. Life happens. So today I just want to kind of cover all of those the best I can, and hopefully you guys can relate in some way or another. So to start off, everybody at some point in their life has had someone say, I'm here for you, or you can always tell me what's wrong. But as we all know, understanding mental health problems can be difficult despite how common they are. So when you say you're here for somebody, what does that mean? And by that question, I'm simply speaking on when people say that they're there for you. Most people don't know what that entails. Most people doesn't know what that exactly looks like. When I say I'm here for somebody, I know the challenges that come with having mental health struggles. Same with loss, same with parent issues. If I can find some way to relate what you're going through, I can 100% help you. But most people, when they say they're here for you, I feel like just says it as words of comfort. Like, do they actually mean it? I think that kind of falls in that category of maybe not a fake friendship, but not the friendship you think it is. It's, you can tell somebody what's going on in your life, but it all depends on the person, right? It's circumstantial. I feel like if you're telling somebody what's going on at home, and you don't really talk to that person, it can become awkward. They can start treating you different. They stop responding to your messages. I've had it happen to me plenty of times. And I know who I can confide in, and I know who I don't confide in. And you just have to find that specific person in your life who can emotionally understand you, help you validate what you're going through. Of course, there is options outside of friends that can help you deal with your mental health struggles. There's peer support groups, there's therapy, there's counseling, there's everything for everybody out there. And what I like to do with my platform is try and express what those resources look like. It's not just therapy, it's not just medicine. There is so many different options out there for people now, and I can't possibly stress it enough how grateful I am to see society as a whole just, it seems like we're in a better place. It seems like we're slowly getting there. With the 988 number coming through and it being official, they reported it's been doing really well. And when you think about it, yeah, it's sad that we have so many people in this world that have struggles to where they feel they need to call a crisis hotline or they need these mental health resources. But deep down, I think we all knew how bad it was out there. We just, we become numb to it. You hear it on the news every day. You hear suicide numbers go up. You hear overdoses, so on and so forth. And again, it's something that society has become numb to, and creates that stigma for mental health. Like, oh, well, so and so passed away today, or this, all these people pass away. And most people react either, wow, that person meant something to me, or, oh man, another person's gone. That sucks. And I want to break that stigma. We're missing so much compassion in this world. We're missing that ingredient of giving a shit about each other again. And I feel, as a friend for myself, I have always been a giver. I don't take any energy from anybody. If it's reciprocated, great. If not, it sucks when you put so much of yourself out there and you don't get it back. And that kind of brings me into the fading friendships conversation. There's friends in my life who I thought I was a lot closer to, and fast forward to now, you just see the complete opposite. And it sucks because life goes so fast and you're never ready for the change. You're never ready for those people to disappear. And it's an unfortunate part of life, but you don't have to react to it in a negative way. You can look at it as, we shared a lot of really good memories with each other. We formed a bond that I couldn't possibly replicate with anybody else. For me, the fading friendship thing, somebody that has a big heart like myself, it's hard to accept. It's hard to process the fact that I might not be good friends with that person anymore. And I'm not as close to that person as I once was. But you also got to realize that some of those fading friendships could be a blessing. Maybe they were an energy leech in your life for so long and you just never wanted to see it that way. And I have experienced that with somebody who I was friends with for over 10 years. She was an energy leech. I couldn't be happy unless she was happy. And that was something that, yes, I take full responsibility for, not wanting to see her for what she was. And it took her walking out of my life to see it. And, I'm going through that right now where, with somebody else who I thought I was a lot closer to than I am. And you can only put so much of your energy out there for somebody. And at some point, you got to put yourself first and match their energy. That's something my therapist and I just talked about. When you match energy with people, you if you set low standards for people, you won't be disappointed, right? And if you match the energy somebody else is giving you, then that person is not going to live rent free in your head. So, after that session, it just kind of clicked in my brain. It's like, wow, it makes a lot of sense not to invest so much energy into somebody who doesn't really seem to want to do the same. So, basically, what I'm saying is put yourself first, whatever that looks like for you. If that means you stop reaching out to certain people that you always reach out to first, stop doing that. I need to take that advice myself and stop reaching out to people first. But again, I know who I can confide in. I know who I can trust. And I know who would actually give the same energy that I would give out. Right. So the way to work with friends that have mental health struggles or yourself and they don't seem to understand is start with self-awareness. Self-awareness is something that is very important. If you know your boundaries, what things you can or can't tolerate, that's the first step into taking care of yourself. And communicate your needs with that person. If they're being a little too aggressive, they're being a little too persistent about something you're supposed to do with that person, communicate your needs. Again, boundaries is something that I'm probably going to preach very, very loudly in this podcast because boundaries are something that I have struggles with sometimes, but I've gotten better. I've created boundaries for myself with my parents. I've created boundaries with people who I thought were better friends than they are currently. And once you put those boundaries up for yourself, man, you'll have that inner peace within yourself. And most importantly, support each other. If that person says, hey, I need a little more time to deal with this, I'm going through something, or you communicate that to them, respect each other enough to give that support to somebody. When I say support, I don't mean, bow to their every needs and, put everything on the back burner for yourself to support that person, but make sure that you guys can lean each other when you need it. Mental health isn't something that, oh, well, it focuses on this age group, it focuses on this gender. Mental health is something that everybody can be affected by. Not everybody has depression, not everybody has anxiety, but there are people who have more than just those two together, and funnily enough, on Facebook, I found this post that I posted. I thought was pretty funny. It's like, I have depression, but thankfully I have anxiety too. And, it's funny, but it's true. Again, when you're leaning on somebody, you don't know what that person's going through. Sometimes they can be internalizing a whole lifetime's worth of trauma. But at the same time, again, communicate your needs and support each other. It's 2 points I couldn't possibly stress enough, because if you can communicate to that person like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about, XYZ and why it doesn't work for me, or the way you worded it came off as aggressive, or whatever you are wanting to tell them, make sure you stress your point to that person, because if you can't put boundaries up for yourself, nobody's going to respect you. Nobody is going to support you in the way that you need it. So, how do you be a good friend to somebody who's struggling with mental health? Number one, validate what they're saying, and that goes for anybody. Whether it's your parents that are going through something, or a sibling, a friend. Most importantly, to me anyway, validate what they're saying. If they're telling you how hard their day has been, or a loss that they just suffered, validate what they said. Like, listen, I'm so sorry that this happened, and let me know how I can support you. Which brings me to my second point. Ask how you can help somebody. That help can be just listening. Just listening to somebody vent could do wonders. I wish I could have had that when I was younger. I didn't have anybody to listen without being criticized, without being what's the word? Without being told that I'm a man and I can't feel these feelings. There was a movie that I was watching last night. It's called Funny People with Adam Sandler, Seth Rogen. And Adam had said something to Seth Rogen in a restaurant where he's like, "You're a grown ass man crying. Don't cry in here. Don't cry in here. You're going to make a scene." Again, a stigma that has been thrown around in society for so long is you can't show emotion because you're a man. You can't express yourself because you're a man. And again, if you can validate that, whether it's man or woman, if you can validate what that person is going through and ask them how you can help them, even if that looks like venting, don't be judgmental. Don't throw out society's false standards and saying that, oh, well, you're a man, so you can't feel the way that you're feeling, or you're a woman, you can't do these things, whatever. Be understanding of their limits. If they express to you what they're going through and they don't want to say anymore, it's like, okay, don't push it any further than what they're willing to express to you. I have vented to people about something and had to cut myself off because it was just like, either A, I didn't feel like I was being validated, or B, I just didn't want to talk about it anymore. And I've done that plenty of times. I have friends who I trust more than my actual family, but I also know my limits. I know what I would want to express to a friend versus what I would want to tell Jessica, my therapist. If you can respect somebody's limitations, they might come back to you and they might confide in you. They might start to trust you. You start gaining that trust with them. Again, venting or allowing somebody to vent to you is massive on such a high level. I couldn't possibly put it in enough words. Just listening to somebody tell you about their struggles is something that I feel like a lot of people take for granted. I don't feel that enough people understand what it means to let people vent to them, to the point of where this person has gone through all these traumatic events and has never been heard, has never just had someone to listen. When somebody's venting to you, avoid cutting them off, avoid giving criticism, avoid giving them advice. Let them finish their thought. And if they ask you what they should do, then you give your thoughts. You don't go right into, oh, well, my dog died, and I broke my leg yesterday, and whatever they're venting about, you don't cut in and be like, okay, well, do this, this, and this. Like, no, no, no. You let them finish. And if there's advice that they want from you, they'll ask for it. Either they're going to ask you for advice, or when they're done venting, you can give your point of view and avoid criticism. Which brings me to my next point. Do not gossip about anybody who is struggling with mental health. I have been, I don't want to say the victim, I have been the focus point on gossip to people that I have vented to people who I trusted with my life, and people that try to use that as a weapon towards me. And again, you got to be careful who you confide in, because the walls have ears. And I say that a lot because it's true. The walls do have ears. And with that being said, there's something I wanted to bring up in this podcast as well, on the gossip point. On social media, there are people on your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, who will pretend to be your friend, who will play spy for whatever friend you blocked or whatever friend you just had issues with. I have had it done to me so many times with my own mother. She had people adding me on Facebook, spying for her. And then she would ask me about what's going on, because quite frankly, her and I don't have a great relationship. We have drifted apart the last 10 years, and every day we drift further away. It's a sad reality, but to go back to my point, some people play spy on your social media. And when people hear this, you might laugh and be like, yeah, okay, there's nobody on my Facebook spying. It's a very real thing. And you got to look for the signs of people that are doing that to you, because I've had people come up to me and be like, hey, what's going on with this? And I've never talked to them. Or, somebody I haven't been friends with in over 5-10 years. And all of a sudden one of their friends tell them like, oh, hey, this person's talking about you or whatever. I I don't like to make enemies with anybody. If somebody walks out in my life, yeah, I'll probably be heartbroken about it, depending on how strong our friendship was. But I always try to avoid gossiping. Gossiping does nobody any good. And you got to be the better person in these situations. Going back to my point with helping your friend, though, don't gossip about what this person's going through. If this person just went through a breakup, it doesn't matter if it was 2 weeks, it doesn't matter if it was 6 months. A breakup can affect everybody differently. If they lost a parent that they didn't have a good relationship with, don't gossip. Again, you have to have that trust with that person that you're communicating with, and vice versa. And it's something I feel a lot of people just don't know how not to do, is gossip. Somebody's always talking, somebody's always listening. People have done it to me and almost had me lose my job. It happens. But be the better person, don't gossip. Be the change that you want to see in the world. I know that's like the corniest saying in the world, because I've heard it so many times, but if you want change in your life, you have to be the person responsible for that change. So if you're trying to help somebody going through mental health struggles, don't gossip what they're going through. Another good one is, changing the subject or creating a distraction for that person. I always try to do this with everybody who goes through what they're going through, especially loss. Loss has been a really big part of my life over the past 2 years, as has it been for everybody else. I've had people come to me about people they lost. I've lost myself, obviously. And the best thing to do in a lot of these situations, if somebody is high on emotion, if somebody is having a breakdown, or if somebody's venting to you and they start having a panic attack, if you can change that focus to something else, something positive, something that they enjoy, or whatever it is, that could help somebody tremendously. When Santi passed away, I had really close friends. One of my friends, Keisha, who was his fiance, she came to me after he passed away, and we talked for about 2 weeks and helped her find the help that she deserved. And I feel she's in a mentally better place than she was a year ago. Of course, the emotion is obviously still very, very there. Grief isn't something that you just snap your fingers and it goes away. But it's, if you can provide that distraction to people and you can be there for somebody, um, in a way that they will come back to you if they have something else going on in their life, that is tremendous for anybody. And I highly recommend using this tactic probably before anything else. Is listen to them vent, and then try to channel that energy and get it focused on something positive. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, you can still be happy, or, it could have been much worse. That's not a distraction. That is invalidating. But changing the subject or distracting somebody, I feel is something that could be very useful, very quick. It's kind of like de-escalating. Going back to the Tiffany podcast I did a couple months ago, de-escalating a situation by creating that distraction. If somebody is high in emotion, de-escalating by changing the subject, or creating a distraction. Now, let's talk about the things that you don't need to do when it comes to dealing with, or not dealing with, helping somebody with a mental health struggle. You do not need to be available 24/7. Somebody texts you at 3 a.m, somebody texts you at 5 a.m, and you're sleeping, and then they get upset with you. Boundaries. Again, I'm going to preach this word. You're going to hear it. You're going to hear it a couple of times today. Boundaries is something you need to create for yourself in order to help somebody. If you don't have boundaries, you're going to be walked all over. You're not going to be respected, and you're going to be set to a standard of, oh, well, this person is going to listen and they don't have any standards for themselves, so I'm just going to constantly vent on them and expect them to pour from an empty cup every single time. So boundaries. Boundaries and not being available 24/7 is a very, very strong form of self-care. If you can differentiate being a good friend and taking care of yourself at the same time, I feel you're one step ahead of so many people who try to be there for everybody at all times. I can personally tell you that I was the friend for so long to be there for somebody 24/7. Didn't matter if it was 5 a.m, I would always wake up and respond to that person's message and go back to sleep. And again, complete disregard of self-care on my part. Don't be that person. It took a lot of energy out of me to be there for somebody 24/7. And I understand life happens. You can't control crisis sometimes. But again, there are resources out there for said crisis. We have the text line, we have the 988 number. We have so many different avenues of help. And yes, while it may be something that a lot of people, aren't really crazy about talking to a quote unquote professional, or, talking to a counselor, talking to a therapist, because of that stigma of, if you're going to therapy, you're this, or if you're seeing a counselor, you're this. Don't be afraid to look for those resources. And if you don't know what those resources look like, that person that you're trying to confide in at 6:30 in the morning while they're sleeping, ask them, like, hey, I know you're sleeping, but can you help me find resources to help me with XYZ? Don't expect somebody to respond to you every second of the day. One, it's unrealistic. And two, I feel that's a form of being selfish and not caring about that person who's trying to be there for you. So the most important part of this is don't be available 24/7 and don't expect anybody to be available for 24/7. Do not put yourself in danger to watch over a friend. I have had a gun pulled on me because of me trying to be there for a friend, me trying to make sure that person wasn't going to get hurt. Do not put yourself in that situation. Your life is as valid as their life. And if they have no regard for anybody else's life except for their own, that's when you either need to set that boundary like, hey, I don't feel comfortable doing this with you anymore. Here's a resource that you can reach out to, or, cut it off. It's okay to cut a friendship, guys. No matter what anybody tells you, it's okay to cut people out of your life. And even if it's temporary, again, boundaries. I'm going to sound like a broken record saying that word today. And honestly, it's something that I want to plant in the back of everybody's head who goes through this, because I don't want somebody to put themselves in a situation that they can't get themselves out of because of not wanting to take care of themselves. You don't have to feel guilty if things start going well for you either, guys. If you and that said person are doing the same exact thing, you started from the bottom and you happen to reach the top before that person, you don't have to feel guilty for that. You encourage, help lift up people. I mean, shit, that's what Santi did for me. And I can talk about Santi now and not, I don't want to say not shed a tear, but not go into high emotion about it, because Santi, no matter where he was at in his life, whether that was getting a new job, getting promoted, whatever, he would always lift everybody around him up. I'm telling you to do the same exact thing for those people that are with you. All you have to do is encourage that person. Be like, listen, it took a lot of hard work. I know we started at the same time, and you suggest to your friend, okay, this is what I did. These are the steps you can follow, or do whichever way works for you. Don't be that person who reaches the top and gives them some sort of like false sympathy. Don't pretend to care that somebody is at a lower point in your life. We're all working towards the same goal. We're all fighting in the same battle. We have to be there for each other, lean on each other, support each other, lift each other up. And that's all it takes. Is a little encouragement can go so damn far. So if you have somebody who is down on themselves because they don't feel like they're going anywhere in life, they feel like they're behind, or they see you at the top and they want to be there, but now they're feeling discouraged because you got there first. You don't rub your accomplishments in somebody's face, but don't feel bad for doing well for yourself. We all deserve happiness. We all deserve inner peace. But in order to find that inner peace, you have to be okay with yourself. You have to be okay with your journey. There is a quote that I was going to wait until the end of this podcast to read, but I feel it's very relevant to what I'm saying now. Being 30 years old, I have been single 85% of my life and the last 11 years. I'm 30 years old. I got my apartment for myself 2 years ago, and I don't have kids, and I'm not married. And that's okay. It's okay to be 30. It's okay to be 45 and not have any of those things. As long as you're happy, as long as you have inner peace, don't compare your situation to everybody else's situation, because there are people like myself who had to start a lot later than others, who had to fight through a mental health struggle that others didn't. That doesn't mean somebody is better than you. That doesn't mean that you don't deserve happiness. You deserve all of that happiness. You deserve all of that inner peace that you can provide to yourself. Lift each other up, give each other encouragement, and of course, establish those boundaries within yourself, between your friends and whatever else you're going through. again, if you can find that inner peace in yourself, everything is going to work itself out one way or another. You just have to be willing to put in that work for yourself. So when helping somebody going through a struggle, if you're starting to feel overwhelmed, take a break from that person if you need to. You don't have to cut this person off. You don't have to say, hey, I don't want to be your friend anymore because you're just going through too much and I don't want to deal with it. Just say, hey, I need to take some personal time for myself. A little bit of self-care goes a long way. Establish that boundary. Be like, hey, I need a break. I can't be there for you every second of the day. Like I stressed earlier, and share your role with others if you can. And what I mean by that is if you have a circle of friends and you both know what this person is going through, if you're the only one helping that person, which is perfectly fine, express that to that other person in your circle. Be like, hey, listen, like this person's going through this right now. I have put in a lot of energy into this. Can you help me? And if they say no, again, respect that boundary. But also, you have to be willing to accept that person saying no, that they can't help that person. But you need to help that person. Well, you don't need to. You can help that person find resources for themselves if you need a break. If you're feeling overwhelmed, and again, if they happen to give you like some sort of pushback and just kind of like stress out and be like, oh my God, you're leaving my side. I don't know what I'm gonna do. You again encouragement, be like, hey, like this isn't a goodbye. This isn't me walking out on you. This is me taking care of myself. I can't pour from an empty cup. I need to take care of myself for a few days. Whatever you need, put yourself first. Make sure that you're practicing self-care because for example, one of my friend's daughter who's going into the 911 job, I myself have had applied for that job and unfortunately I didn't get it, but those guys and girls deal with so much on a daily basis that I feel they need to practice that self-care a lot. And what if you're not in that line of work, I know it's not exactly the same, but being there for somebody who leaves you overwhelmed after the first sentence, sometimes you just need to take a break from that person. Sometimes you just need to give yourself some time to essentially not deal with it, but like process it and take a day off for yourself, take a day away from social media, disconnect, recharge. And a lot of people don't know how to practice self-care, and self-care is unlimited. There is no such thing as wrong self-care. You just have to be willing to take care of yourself before you take care of somebody else, because if you're still bleeding from an open wound and you're trying to be there for other people, man, you're just going to bleed on everybody else. You're just going to what's the word, okay, here's a good one. Since I wrote it down, trauma bonding. Um, if you're forming a connection with somebody based on things or a painful experience that you're not necessarily proud of, you're going to repeat those negative patterns with somebody. If you're both in an abusive relationship and you decide to break up with that person, but then you meet somebody else who is just as bad, or you guys are both on a diet and that person's like, oh, well, I'm not going to diet this week. I'm going to go out for fast food. And they encourage you to do the same. That's trauma bonding. It's something that I've actually been thinking about for the last couple days, based on a friendship that I have right now. Was it really a friendship or is it just trauma bonding? Because me and that person have gone through a lot of similar experiences with our parents. And, fast forward to now, where our friendship is both fading and just kind of reevaluating what I'm going through right now is, matching that energy with that person, I think is going to be beneficial in the long run, simply because, again, I put in so much energy into this friendship and Not to say that they haven't, but I feel I care more about being friends with this person than they care about being friends with me. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it wrong. Um, but again, this is why I'm in therapy. Um, this is why I'm at the point in my life that I'm at, because I'm still learning every day. That's why I do these podcasts, because there's all this information on the internet, right? There's all these websites. There's NAMI, there's Child's Mental Health, there's so many resources that are on websites, which is great. But how does the message get that out there now that we're in the technology era of social media? We're constantly on Instagram, constantly on TikTok. Yeah, we're in a positive direction with seeing everybody share their stories, but I feel we can be in a lot better of a place now than we could be, or than we are right now. And I just feel there's all this information on the internet that I wish was all out there and people can go to, because there's so many people who I feel doesn't know that there's these resources, or doesn't know how to look for the resources, and has that label thrown onto them by a doctor. And I just want to stress to everybody who does listen to this episode that you don't have to be defined by your diagnosis, by your symptoms, by whatever label the doctor throws on you. You're depressed. Oh, well, I'm depressed, so I'm going to stay depressed and nothing's going to get better. I have anxiety. Okay, so I can't go out in public. I can't do this. I can't do that. The more you say you can't, the more you won't. The more uh, encouraging, uplifting things you say to yourself, positive self talk. I've talked about this on a previous episode. If you can start talking to yourself like you talk to the people you try to help, it could go a long way. And again, that goes with the inner peace conversation that I was having. Um, if you can uh, if you can get that inner peace and honor your inner child again, and try to be happy, try to accept the good in your life, you can be at a lot better of a place than you're at now. And I'm not saying you're in a bad place by any means. I'm just saying, if you're struggling with something and you don't know how to get through it, positive self-talk, man. Set those goals for yourself, and that goes with therapy. I talked to my really good friend Victoria, who is going to be seeing a new therapist soon, and I told her the most important step of therapy is knowing what you want to address, because most of us who go into therapy think it's just sessions for venting. Therapy is a self-care plan, right? It's where you want to be in 2 years, where you want to be next year, where you want to be in 6 months. If you can set goals for yourself, whether it's a month goal, whether it's a week goal, it doesn't have to be a certain time length. If you want to be at a certain place in your life and you're open to therapy, that's what therapy is for. I had a conversation with my friend Javier last night, and he's like, you wanted to done this a couple of years ago. I went to his birthday party, and they were all dancing, and at first I was just like, no, because I don't like people looking at me. And then I went out there and had a good time with them. And he's like, a couple of years ago, you wouldn't have done this. And I said, yeah, man. I mean, therapy is doing wonders for me. I knew what I wanted to address. I knew what I wanted to focus on, and I did it. You know, again, therapy isn't for everybody. And I swear to God, I will say this every single podcast. But while it may not be for everybody, the people who are open to it, it could tremendously help you. It could change your life in ways that you didn't think was imaginable. Um, but for the people who are closed off to it, to the people who have had bad experiences with it, that's perfectly fine. All you have to do is know where you want to be at your life in a year and in 6 months. You can get there as long as you're willing to put in the work for it, and that's the most important part of growth. Is there are people you're going to run into your whole life that are either toxic, beneficial, not beneficial, I hate using that word, that can help you with your growth, that'll teach you lessons, maybe that not some that you not necessarily want to learn. Um, but it teaches you a lot about yourself. It teaches you endurance. It teaches you strength. Um, for those fake friends, for those friendships that you're not really sure about anymore, it's okay to go through all these things. You're not alone. You know, you're not never going to be alone, no matter how alone you feel. Um, if there are people that listen to this who are in the mental health group that I have on Facebook, if you need resources, if you need help in these podcasts, you know, you just can't find the time to listen to them, I'm here to use the platform that I've been given and help you any way that I can. Um, there are a couple things that I wrote down here that I think might help you um, with with your friends and mental health and that whole dynamic between each other. If you can share coping tools with each other, I feel that's a really positive first step for a lot of people. When I first started this journey with the mental health and being an advocate, if you can share coping mechanisms with people, for me, it was music. I have a playlist that probably has days worth of music on it. I've shared it with so many people, and um, music can be a doorway into somebody's soul. Some people just don't look at music like that, and that's okay too. Whether you're coping looks like taking a walk in nature, going to the beach. There's no such thing as wrong coping. Of course, unless you're doing something illegal or harmful to somebody, I wouldn't recommend that. But coping looks like so many different things, and I've talked about that in previous episodes of what coping can look like for some people. So you can share coping tools with somebody, then I feel you can definitely help somebody at least get the first couple steps of healing for themselves. Recommending resources for people. Now, this one I kind of wrote down and gave it a little bit of thought. Um, if you have a friend who is going through loss, who is going through a really bad breakup or a death in the family, whatever it is, be careful on recommending the resources to somebody, because it could come off as, I don't want to hear what you're going through. Um, I would say wait a little bit before you start recommending resources to somebody, because it could give the wrong message to somebody and be like, wow, you said you were here for me, and here you are just sending me somewhere else. Again, going back to the beginning of this podcast, is validating what somebody is going through. If you have a friend who just lost a parent, and loss is loss, it doesn't matter if it was a parent, it doesn't matter if it was a pet. Loss in a family or a loss to a spouse is probably the hardest thing in the world to deal with. Um, Recommending resources for people with loss, it's a good thing, but you also have to let somebody process that loss. You don't jump right into, oh well, hey, here's the hotline, let them deal with you. Try to avoid recommending resources right away. If you're somebody who wants to help somebody and aren't sure how, and you have friends who are in the mental health field, or you have friends who can de-escalate that person's emotions and be like, listen, I know what you're going through, let me know how I can help, and move forward from there, that's okay too. But don't put yourself in a position where you're going to get overwhelmed immediately and not sure how to help this person, because anybody who's in a high pressure, high emotion situation, some people just don't know how to process their emotions when they're going through it. And that person they're trying to confide in, if you just say, okay, well, here's a hotline to a high pressure, high emotion person, it's going to send the wrong message, and it could make them in a worse state of mind. And obviously that's something us in the mental health field want to avoid completely. And working in the crisis text line, without even saying any of the situations directly, because I know it can't, the most important part when you're in the crisis text line, when you're in the crisis hotline, is making sure that person is brought to a calm and cool state of mind, right? You have to make sure that person's calm before anything else. You can talk to them like a normal person, but you also have to be sure that you are you are present for that person. You are listening. You are validating everything that they're saying, and you're trying to be empathetic to that person and what they're going through. So, validate, be present, be there for each other, lift each other up whenever necessary. And I wrote this one down, and I wasn't really sure if I should write weekly or monthly. But a weekly check-in wouldn't be a bad thing. Even a monthly thing, depending on where they're at mentally. If a friend is there looking for advice or looking for help with grief or whatever it is, I don't think a weekly check-in could hurt, depending on that person, because I know some people don't like that constant check-in, don't constantly like being asked how are you or what's wrong, because I know when somebody says to me what's wrong more than once, it puts me in a negative state of mind. It's like, oh well, what's wrong with me? This person keeps asking what's wrong with me. I don't think saying what's wrong to somebody is terrible, but I also think that there is a way to word that to where it doesn't sound so negative. So when it comes down to helping somebody, like I said, be present and be there for each other the best that you can. And if you can't seem to process what they're going through, or it's a really high trigger for you, and I know that's a very real thing, dealing with mental health stuff is a trigger, because I've had friends talk to me about suicide stuff, and for a while it was a heavy trigger. I would get emotional, I would get angry hearing about it, because there's so many jokes about suicide, there's so many invalidations when it comes to suicide, that I would just get angry and shut down. Um, if somebody is triggering you, you need to communicate your needs with that person. Like, listen, I would love to help you, and this is a very triggering situation for me. So I'm going to recommend you to a friend, or recommend them that. In that case, you can recommend them a resource. And that won't come off as dismissive. Like, listen, I want to help you, but unfortunately, this situation is very triggering for me. So that is a very good segue into recommending those resources for people. Um, Again, I want to stress the boundaries part, and this will be the last time I say the word boundaries, I promise. Put yourself first no matter what. And I know that's hard, especially for parents. I know that's really hard to put yourself first, because realistically, you're putting your kids first, but sometimes you got to put yourself first. I remember hearing a conversation a couple weeks ago where it said, if you're a parent, do you put your kids first, or do you put yourself first? And mostly everybody put their kids first. And that person responds, no, like, if you can't be happy, your kids aren't going to be happy. And I thought that was something that kind of like a light bulb went off in my head, because like, wow, like, again, if you can have that inner peace within yourself, happiness is possible all around you. So that goes the same for you parents that are listening. If you put yourself first once in a while, everybody around you can be as happy as you are. Everybody around you can be as peaceful as you are. For example, when my mom stayed here for a week, I'm going to be honest with you, I was 100% mentally exhausted by the time she left. But we didn't get into any arguments that I remember. And she's like, this is the most peaceful that I've been in the last 10 years, because we didn't fight, whatever. That's the environment I want to have around me, is peace. I want peace. I want happiness. And while me and her don't have the best relationship, and probably never will, this goes for the parents who have kids, and the people who have parents that are toxic. Put your happiness first. If you have to walk away, walk away. If you have to deflect them to somewhere else, do it. Put you first. Put that boundary down. I'm like, listen, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to hear this. That's all you have to say. You don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't owe anybody shit. Put yourself first. With that being said, this was a great podcast, in my opinion. I know I'm biased because it's my podcast, but I really enjoyed this one because it talked about some things that me and my therapist and I had talked about. One of the most important pieces that I brought up was matching the energy with people. If you can match the energy other people are giving you, I feel like again that inner peace will be with you no matter what. Put good things into the universe, good things come back. Don't expect things from people. Don't set your standards too high for anybody, and make sure you're taking care of yourself. At the end of every podcast, of course, I like to read quotes because I feel they all are very good. Some are more powerful than others. This one I thought was really good. This one comes from Jennifer Gale, and this is on friendships and mental health. Some days you will be the light for others, and some days you will need some light from them. As long as there is light, there is hope, and there is a way. I absolutely love that quote, probably more than most of them, because it stresses the point that I made in this entire podcast, and that's that inner peace, that light in yourself. I used what light was given to me from Santi, from Amy, from my therapist, and I have shared that light with others. I have created a beacon for everybody else to come to if they need it, to listen to these podcasts, to see the posts that I put on Facebook, whatever it is, whatever platform, I try to express that as much as I humanly can. So thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope everybody can get something out of this podcast as usual. Make sure to put yourself first, set your boundaries, love yourself, and chase that inner peace no matter what. Be well and be gentle with yourselves, guys. Thank you.